everybody, it's Kimberly McPherson. I'm here to talk to you about Module 5 discussion. We have been reading about antibiotics and antibiotic resistance and how it's becoming an unrelenting public health care problem that we see throughout the world. I know I see it predominantly in my community. That is through the overuse or the misuse of antibiotics, because you know, if you go to the doctor, if you don't leave with a prescription, you haven't been to the doctor and that doctor is no good. However, we need to be antibiotic stewards. Stewardship is definitely something that we need to look into. We need to educate ourselves as professionals, and we need to go forward as professionals to educate our community about how antibiotics should be used, and if they're used appropriately, we can help prevent large amount of sums from being spent in health care, and for one, that to develop new drugs for these superbugs, and the possibility of preventing a development of a superbug that we can't eradicate. So first and foremost, we need to know that antibiotics are mostly one of the most important tools we use in the healthcare profession for combating life-threatening bacterial diseases. That is the big word there, bacterial diseases. A lot of people can go to the doctor and have a viral illness and they think they're supposed to have an antibiotic. That's a misuse, and that's a misconception, and we need to educate on that. We need to remind ourselves to be strong as a stewardship and to make sure, stand true to what we've been taught, so we don't misuse and help misuse by allowing a doctor to write a prescription to make that person happy. However, we need to make sure we're on the right antibiotic. If they do exhibit and have lab testing that definitely is definitive that it's a bacterial process going on. How we can find the right antibiotic is, for one, we can do a culture and sensitivity test. Simple blood test. It takes a couple of days, 48 hours at the most, that we will grow up the bacteria, and we'll expose it to different antibiotics and see which one it's resistant, which one it's sensitive to. Of course, we want that person on a sensitive drug, a drug that particular antibiotic is sensitive to, therefore we eradicate it. So if within 48 hours, if we haven't done a culture and sensitivity, we should also be looking at our patient, and we should be asking that patient to come back in if it's in a clinic to see if their symptoms are residing, if they're getting better. That's one sure sign that's the right antibiotic if we don't have the CNS, but CNS is a definite thing. So that's the first part of antibiotic stewardship. The second part is to make sure we are on the drug for the right amount of time, or the duration of time. Too many times these doctors are writing short antibiotics just to make that person happy. They might not think it's bacterial. Therefore, that person decides not to take the prescribed dose at the same time every day, or for the length of time that's been described, because they want to save it for later in case they get sick again. That is a bad habit. We are all guilty of it, I do believe. It's something we need to stop, and we need to educate about and be stewards about, because that can leave bacteria behind, and when that leaves bacteria behind, it causes them to change in some sort of way, or they become resilient or resistant to that particular drug. Therefore, they need a different drug or a stronger drug the next time, and maybe one that's not even been created yet. So then we get our superbugs like MRSA, VRE, and even C. diff. The thing is, too, looking at C. diff, we have a lot of patients that are on C. diff precautions at a facility that I've worked at. A lot of it has to do with overuse of antibiotics, where the duration of the antibiotic the patient was placed on was so long. And the reason why it was so long is because that person wasn't making progression as they should. Hint, hint, that should be a sign that that is the wrong antibiotic for whatever bacteria is growing and making that person sick. So we should be looking at a different antibiotic. We should definitely know something, like I said, within the 48 to 72 hour window, and if anything hasn't been changing, we should be looking at a different drug instead of extending the duration of the drug that they're already on. This poses that person at risk, like I said, for getting something such as C. diff, which is a superbug that causes other problems. So that duration is too long, it causes problems. Duration is too short, it causes problems. So we need to make sure we get it just right. With that being said, with us being antibiotic stewards, we're going to be saving lives, and we're going to be saving money, not only for ourselves and for our consumers, because it is a whole lot of money to develop a new drug, to get it approved for the FDA. If we don't have to make a whole lot of new drugs, or we don't have to push them through, so to speak, so that we can treat these new upcoming diseases, then it's not so much to cost to get the prescription filled. So, again, in review, we need right dose for the right duration, and we need to have an indication that that person definitely needs to be on an antibiotic, bacterial symptoms, signs and symptoms, fevers, purulent, that type of stuff. We need to get cultures before we begin the treatment, because if we have already given an antibiotic, then that can skew the results there. And we need to take a time out and reassess the patient after 48 to 72 hours, so that we will make sure that we're making progress with whatever antibiotic they're on, and if not, switch to one that particular bacteria is more sensitive to. So, with us being stewards, it would decrease the antibiotic resistant diseases, it will decrease C. diff, it will decrease the money spent to develop new drugs, and it will increase our patient outcome, because they will get well faster and have a better outcome. So, that is a wonderful thing. That's something we all need to strive to be. The second thing that we've been asked to talk about is being an antibiotic steward in relationship to the management of patients diagnosed with the new breakout of Ebola virus and the development of new drugs to treat that. Again, it goes into hand in hand what we've said. We need to make sure we got the correct strain of the Ebola virus. There's not really a good drug out there that's been proven effective for all of them. They are in the process of trying to take, weakened strains, or a person that has, to make a vaccine for that viral drug. One of the ones looking at is the MAP, and it's made from 3 different antibodies from a person or subject matter that has been exposed to the Ebola, and what that does, it binds to those antibodies or proteins that bind and neutralize the Ebola virus. In studies, it showed to help some, but then some have still passed away because it did not eradicate the Ebola virus, because there could have been some kind of mutation or something there. Other drugs is TKM, Ebola, which shuts the Ebola genes. It attacks there in the RNA interference, makes RNA interference during their replication. There's several different ones. We definitely need to be stewards that we just don't go out there and start giving all these viral drugs to everybody that's been exposed to it. We need to kind of be vigilant. We need to try to see if we can do just like the CNS and see if that person's blood with the Ebola virus is susceptible, and if those medications work before we give them to everybody. We definitely need to be, it's definitely important for us to be antibiotic stewards in this process, so we don't mutate the Ebola virus and create a much more stronger strain, which could cause a whole lot more problems than what we've already got. It's already a major crisis situation when you hear Ebola, and we definitely need to eradicate it the best that we can and not make it worse than what it already is. So, with that, and that's the case with any new viral or any new disease, that is terrible. So, it's very critical that we be vigilant, that we use the appropriate steps, and we just don't give something to be giving it, and therefore we'll have a better outcome for everybody. So, I thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.